Will, I hope you're having a great day. Welcome in to the game here in Tuscaloosa.
Hey, what's going on, Ryan? Doing great, man. Trying to dodge some of this cold weather, but gearing up for a big game this weekend, man.
Yeah, it is a little weird. I mean, we got to New Orleans, and it feels more like New York City than it does New Orleans.
Yeah, fortunately, we got us an indoor game, or it may have played a factor. You know, those Southern boys aren't used to playing in that cold too much.
No doubt, no doubt. Will, how much do you try to block out the distractions of a place like New Orleans and really get dialed in? I mean, how hard is that from a player perspective?
It's difficult in general, but I think given all the circumstances, it won't be the challenge it typically would be, I guess, for any other team coming down to play. With us playing in the Sugar Bowl so much in recent years, I think that we've really grown accustomed or are comfortable with that game, the whole setup of the Sugar Bowl, the atmosphere, the activities, the logistics, where we're staying, where we're playing, all of it. I think that our team is a lot more comfortable and familiar with all that than most other teams that are coming down. And another factor, too, which I've experienced as well as some of these other guys to a degree, you come down and you play in the Sugar Bowl and be playing strictly in the Sugar Bowl where with no playoff or national title implications like we did my freshman year. And that was our first time back to a big-time bowl game in quite some time, 2008 that is. And, we didn't handle it very well. I think Andre Smith got caught up talking to an agent or something. He got suspended. Guys were certainly enjoying themselves during the week, probably more so than if we were playing for a national title. We were undefeated that year heading into the SEC championship, so we're kind of thinking national championship. And then with Tebow coming back to beat us, kind of deflated those sails. So it was somewhat of a letdown to end up there. But so we had that year, and kind of I think we had a couple guys sent home at some point during the week. Went through that kind of scenario or situation, if you will. And then a couple years later, come back in 2011 and playing in the game there, same stadium, everything, and, playing for the national championship. So a lot more focus from the team in that situation, in that game, and that week leading up. And I think you're going to get a similar case here. A lot of these guys have played in this stadium. They've got some familiarity with it, and they know the task at hand. And I know that Coach has been preaching it, kind of like we've been talking about on the show. It's really not about revenge for those guys. It's more so about the task at hand, which is the next game, which is improving from our last showing, which was not our best game by any stretch of the term, and giving ourselves a chance to play for the title. So I think it goes a long way that we've got such a comfort with this game, with the setting, and with the setup. So I think that plays to Alabama's advantage, if anything.
Will, do you feel like that Alabama's defense is just getting healthy will solve the problems?
I think it'll solve a lot of the problems. It's not going to fix everything. Let's be honest here. Alabama's defense from 2017 is not Alabama's defense from 2016. That's plain and simple math and science, honestly. That last year's unit was one of the greatest defensive units to ever take a field. If they would have finished one last play last year and gotten one more stop and been able to finish undefeated, I may have given them the tilt over my senior year in 2011. But they weren't able to do that, so I can still put up the argument. But that was obviously, jokes aside, one of the greatest defenses in college football history, certainly in recent memory. This year, just not quite as much. We lost a little too much, I think, on the front. We've certainly still got a ton of really good football players, and we were playing at a really high level at a lot of times this year. For whatever reason, just seemed to kind of slip up there at the end of the year. Didn't play very well against Mississippi State. Didn't play very well against Auburn, and we're really good, but it's not fair, I don't think, to hold us to the same standard as last year. So. We're still a really elite defense, but you got to think about the bar that we've set here and the standard that you're comparing to. So, I think that getting these linebackers back is going to help a great deal. but it's still the same defense for the most part. And I thought that Dylan Moses' injury was a little overplayed with us getting a lot of guys back at that position. I don't know if he's going to see quite the snaps that he's seen the last couple of weeks. So certainly a huge loss for us from a depth standpoint. But, like you said, we got guys coming back. It's going to play a huge role for us. It's just about how well those guys can slide back into the groove and get back into contributing on the field in game situations. It's one thing to go through practice reps and get mental reps in film, but a couple of these guys hadn't played but a handful of snaps all season, man. It's been, almost 5-6 months, whatever it's been since then. So going to be really important for those guys to get acclimated to the game speed and the game environment very quickly come game day. But certainly big for us on that side of the ball.
Will, but you look at it, we're talking to Will Lowery right now, former defensive back at the University of Alabama. Alabama, I was on a show earlier today and said, what's the key to Alabama's defense? They've got to stay healthy in this game. They cannot afford to lose a guy, like Rashaan Evans, like a Mack Wilson. I don't know what they would do. I mean, I really don't know. I mean, they've got to stay healthy in this game.
Yeah, I agree with that. And unfortunately, that's been kind of the theme all year is we haven't been able to stay healthy. And for that reason, we have fought through some personnel and depth issues and had to persevere and really pull together as a team, to fill those holes and to try and replace those guys and their production. And I think given the situation that this staff and this team and these players, these young guys have done a tremendous job stepping up and making do with losing some of our leaders and key production guys on that side of the ball. But I do tend to agree with you. If we see any more injuries on that side of the ball during the game, whether that's recurring injuries from some of these guys coming back to try and fight through it, or if that's anybody else going down, certainly anybody in the secondary, we're already a little bit limited there and banged up to a degree, or we're heading into bowl practices. It would certainly be tough. But, I wouldn't count us out now. I mean, there's nobody better in the business than Coach Pruitt and Coach Saban at making in-game adjustments. I think that they'll do a great job if and when someone does go down of trying to replace that guy and minimize that loss, if you will, minimize the impact that situation would have on the game. And to be honest with you, this game is, to me, on paper and all things considered, is an extremely close matchup. I think it can go either way. I think that both teams are very good. I think that, like we were talking about, there's been a little bit of a drop-off on the defensive side of the ball for Alabama. I think that there's probably maybe a comparable but not quite as big of a drop-off on the offensive side of the ball for Clemson. Replacing a Deshaun Watson is a very tough task. As we've talked about on the show and seen this year, he's done a tremendous job. He is a special talent, and he absolutely was the driving force behind their victory last year over us. But that being said, Kelly Bryant is a very similar quarterback. I mean, watching film, sometimes you can forget who's who. He's certainly not Deshaun Watson, but he has a lot of the same traits, same abilities, same strengths that Deshaun had that gives us trouble on defense. So I think it's a very close matchup. One of the kickers, though, to me, is just thinking about the fact that we lost our last game and we lost this team the last time we played. If you give me Coach Saban and Alabama right now or in the last few years, whatever, in that situation, playing a team again after they beat us or playing the week after we lost, that's not the team you want to see, is Alabama coming off a loss or Alabama in a revenge spot. So I think it's really hard for me to say that Saban could lose two in a row to a team or to two games in a row without some kind of special circumstance. So it's just going to be really interesting for me to see how this all plays out because, like we say, the style of team that can beat us, they have a really elite defense. Clemson does, as we do. And there's a lot of offensive weapons. It's a bowl game. We've been off for a month or whatever the time period is. So crazy things happen. I mean, you see these bowl games, crazy plays happen. Sometimes teams get really sloppy. Sometimes teams come out like we did in 2010 when you've had time to get healthy and you just explode. It just can go so many different directions, and it's going to be a lot of fun to see when we actually line it up and kick this thing off, who's ready to come out and execute to win the ball game. At the end of the day, the execution is what's going to matter, and that's it.
Will, what areas would you like to see Alabama play better on offense?
Passing game and third down. I don't think that's a secret to anybody. I'd love to see us come out and establish the run. I think that's very important for us to do and for us to really stick to the run, not give up on it early, especially if we get down late or if we turn the ball over once or twice. I think that we've really got to give some carries to some of these great backs. We're too talented in that backfield, and we've got enough up front to really affect the ball game and to eat away at the clock, kind of wear down the morale. You know, just the trademark Alabama offense of pounding the ball. I really think that we've got to give touches to our guys in the backfield and make sure that they get theirs, no matter what direction the game flow goes as the game progresses. We've got to give touches to those guys in the backfield. But in terms of improvement, we've just got to be able to throw the ball downfield. Now, whether that's Dable scheming something up, whether that's Jalen making some strides, maybe that's getting more comfortable with the receivers and that chemistry growing between Jalen and the receivers. Maybe that's utilizing tight ends. I don't know what it is, but we've got to improve throwing the ball because you can bank on it. Clemson's going to stack the box and try and make us throw the ball vertically, which we've struggled to do this year and really struggled to do the last 2 years. So it would be really big for us to come out and get Calvin Ridley and some of these guys on the outside, a big grab early to open up the field a little bit. And certainly got to get better on third down than what we showed last game. That hasn't been the story all year, but certainly in that Auburn game, we were far from spectacular on third down on the offensive side of the ball. So, pretty obvious places that we've got to improve on the offensive side of the ball. And I'd be really interested to see what kind of game Dable calls, like we're talking about, if he'll stick to the run or if he'll go ahead and mix in some sprinkles here and there. I'm sure he'll have some surprises. Just no telling, man. It's a lot of different things at his disposal, a lot of different weapons that we have that we can get the ball to. And overall, I think he's done a great job of utilizing the weapons at his disposal and really incorporating a lot of the great athletes that we have. And we've seen some younger guys, Ruggs and some of these other younger guys, stepping up, making plays as freshmen and contributing early. So, that's the dangerous thing about Alabama. We've got a lot of guys that can take it to downs at any given point in time when they get the ball in their hands. So be excited to see what Dable has schemed up on the offensive side for us.
Yeah, it's always fun to see that chess match between that defensive coordinator and that offensive coordinator on both sides of the football. That's the fun part of college football. And I know from your football IQ, I know you have to be sitting there going, I love the counter moves and the different moves that each coordinator is showing one another.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm anxious to see, kind of similar, just on the defensive side of the ball, what Pruitt comes out trying to do and what all we have in the arsenal for this game, because it's obviously got no shortage of attention with him going to Tennessee, juggling 2 jobs. I do think it's definitely more comparable to when Coach Smart left and when Kiffin left last year. Just tend to think that, for whatever reasons and whatever the situations were, I tend to think that Lane was probably a little bit more out the door and focused on his next landing spot than Coach Pruitt is. I think that you can hear the earnestness in Pruitt's voice when he tells you he's coming back for the players. He's coming back to prove something to those guys and to finish what he started. And he's a big believer, man. I can tell you, if there's one thing he harps on, it's finishing. Whether that's a drill, whether that's your homework, whether that's the game, watching film, whatever it is, he is always harping on finishing. So make no mistake, he will be very well prepared and very well ready to finish off this season with these guys. So I'm really not worried about that. But I am curious to see what kind of game plan they've implemented, given he'll be a little bit stretched mentally, and also with all the injuries like we talk about, and the younger guys and the depth issues that we're having on defense, and some of those guys having to be ready to step in. How much we'll implement, how much we'll be ready to go with, and what all he will be calling on game day.
Hey, Will, tomorrow we'll talk to Coach Pruitt, and we'll give an opportunity for 20, 25 minutes. Give me the best question, man. I mean, I need an A+ 10 out of 10 question.
You gonna put me on the spot like that? Oh man, asking Pruitt.
I'm gonna try, man. I should have sent you a text message.
Yeah, you should have given me a little heads up. I'll probably think of a better one later, but I don't know. You got to knock him off his feet a little bit. Don't give him something vanilla. Give him something off the beat, off course that'll kind of catch him by surprise. And I promise you'll get a tasteful response from him, I'm sure.
Okay, no doubt. Hey, Will, as we get a little closer to game time, do you have a lean? Do you have a gut feeling on this game?
Man, I got nothing for you. I hate picking bowl games because, like I said, they're so crazy, man. Now, we could come out and beat them by 30 points, and they could come out and beat us by a couple touchdowns like Auburn did. It could go either way. It'll be a handful of plays that determine the ball game. If you're making me pick, like I said, it's really tough for me to pick against Coach Saban and Alabama 2 games in a row, losing to the same team or losing 2 games in a row. So I lean Alabama, but I think it's an extremely close matchup. I think Clemson's got a great football team. I really, I don't see an edge either way, really. I think it's a dead even matchup. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch that game. Same with the other semifinal, man. Georgia's defense has played absolutely lights out this year, but all but that Auburn game, which they fixed, and but they haven't played anything like what Baker Mayfield brings to the table. So just really intriguing matchups in both of these semifinal games, man. It's going to be a great New Year's Day for everybody.
All right, so looking at that Georgia game and Oklahoma game, you think defense wins against Baker Mayfield?
I'm gonna be real honest with you, Ryan. I think that it just may be Oklahoma and Baker Mayfield's year. I don't know. Winning the Heisman and the national championship is obviously a very tall feat. I don't know how many times it's been done, but it seems like it could be their year. Now, their defense is not very good, and I'm certainly a firm believer that the majority of the time the better defense wins. And the better defense is what matters at this stage of the season and with the stakes this high. But, man, he's a special talent. I don't know what he'll do at the next level. He reminds me a lot of a Johnny Manziel. But with his ability to extend plays and with the weapons that he has on the outside, he seems to turn every game into a shootout. And I just don't know that Georgia has the offensive firepower to keep up with a shootout like that. So, I lean Oklahoma in that game. I really do, simply because of Baker Mayfield and what he brings to the table. But, again, man, it's a bowl game. Anything could happen. Nothing will surprise me in that game either. So I'm just excited to sit down and watch that one, man, while we're getting ready for the Alabama game. I'm going to be in New Orleans heading over this weekend. Looking forward to a great time and some great football.